Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be doing some love notes from your person. This is going to be a message cards only reading, and there are 3 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Snowflake Obsidian. Group 2 is the Fluorite. And group 3 is the Golden Healer Quartz. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups, or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection, and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you'd like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. Chose the Snowflake Obsidian. So I'm going to start by pulling the cards, and then I'll go through each one individually, read the messages, and then tap into the deeper energy surrounding that. So what's going on with your person right now? What do they want you to know from their higher self? Okay, and we have our energy is merging, unity is at hand, love grows stronger. So your person may have gotten a lot of signs and reminders of you recently. Telepathy increasing, a lot happening in the dream space and in the astral realm between the two of you, that it feels like has cleared some sort of obstacle that they at one point in time envisioned between the two of you, and kind of the optimal result in this situation that could have led to them maybe pulling away, energetically speaking, withholding feelings, withdrawing from the connection, kind of taking things at a very sort of slow and drawn out pace, or even sort of running from you altogether. But there's a sense of kind of like what's happening energetically speaking has cleared something up within them to where now they're able to really hold space for and perceive possibility and potential in terms of growth that can happen individually, that can kind of like lead the two of you back towards one another, or even growth from whatever the current state is between the two of you. It's almost like they're focused on the bright side of things, the glass half full as opposed to half empty or limited, or it being too difficult to kind of press beyond whatever the container or boundary is between the two of you. We also have, it's time to be more active. Stop passive behavior. Call back parts of the soul to be whole again. So they may have gone through a process, or still be in the midst of a process of some kind of rigorous shadow work within themselves, tower moments, or even kind of a decision to start to exact change in their life that may be long overdue. There may have been some things that have happened, or that they've witnessed happening to people around them, that have kind of put things in perspective. Where have their priorities been focused? What have their attentions been focused on? What is the yield of their efforts up to this point in time in their life in general, in terms of what they've been giving into romantic partnerships with you, with others from their past, and kind of what the yield or the product was of that. There's a sense of them starting to take some action or having taken some action already to try and understand the nature of these patterns within themselves and to try and work beyond them. Even just holding space for the possibility of something more, something different, alternate kind of scenarios and situations to whatever they had been kind of holding on to up to this point. So if this is someone who has projected blame a lot, they may be in a state of starting to take responsibility for sort of where they find themselves at, choices that have been made that have led up to their present circumstances. So this is no longer somebody who's just sort of sitting and letting life pass them by, sitting and wondering what if, what could happen between the two of you, what might have happened if they'd made different decisions, what would happen potentially if they moved towards you. There's a sense of them almost kind of excavating some sort of obstacle that has become a crutch within themselves in order to kind of free themselves to organically sort of strengthen back into a place of being confident to speak something that's on their mind, express something that's in their heart, give more, trust more in the nature of their feelings, trust more in kind of what signs and synchronicities are directing them toward in terms of active movement towards you, reconciliation for some, or even just kind of even energetically just opening up to where it's more of an equal give and take sort of exchange between the two of you in a subtle realm, as opposed to intensity or intimacy builds and then they get scared and sort of pull away. So moving out of like a hot and cold energy to more of a consistency and flow. It feels like there's a higher sort of awareness of investing further in you or trying to repair this situation. It's worth their while. It's in their best interest. It's in accordance with sort of what their heart wants, what their higher self wants, the mind kind of aligning with all of that and creating strategies or plans of action to sort of free themselves from limits to be able to give to you in this situation in a more limitless way. They also say all will work out in the end. Keep your hope, my love. The universe has our back. So they may be planning to make their way back towards you, drifting towards you, mapping out a course of action to work around whatever distance has been created, maybe emotionally within themselves, situationally, geographically between the two of you, time and space, which is kind of a distance. If you've been in no contact for a while, this could be somebody who's getting ready to kind of peek their head up, kind of come back out from hiding, move closer from where they may have been sort of watching or observing from the shadows in a certain way, because there's something it feels like that has been, they are more aware of or are more able to kind of like hold in a place of the reality of the nature of what they feel for you. This is viable, it's worth fighting for, it's worth exploring, it's worth getting out of their own way and allowing these feelings to be felt, these feelings to kind of grow and expand as they will, to kind of spread into all these new territories of the actualization of possibilities where previously maybe there had only been focus upon kind of like what stands in the way of a growth mindset or the experience of kind of the blossoming of this connection in other ways. They're doing the internal work. Something is widened in terms of the perspective of you, what the future between the two of you could look like, something where they may have been kind of wrestling with a bit of lack mentality before, almost somebody that could have sort of self-sabotaged. I'll ruin the relationship and make things fall apart before I'm abandoned, I'm hurt, I'm left behind, I'm left out in the cold. It almost feels to be that in some way they're aware of this tendency within them, and rather than just dismissing it as like, this is who I am, and operating from that place of woundedness or triggering, there's almost a sense here of this individual sort of saying, this is who I am, but what can I do about that in a kind of progressive and productive and effective manner to change that, or to try and work with this tendency more, soften up the inclination to move in that direction when I feel triggered, and start to bring in kind of healthier coping mechanisms or habits, or a bit more patience, which it feels like has allowed them to sort of hold space for whatever confusing feelings they have for you, or the nature of what they hold inside that has triggered them maybe into a space of sort of backing off, watching the situation from afar, or even kind of like outright distance in the form of no contact that they've generated in the situation between you. They also say, you anchor my spirit. So this is tying into words that you may have spoken to them in the past that at first could have fallen almost on deaf ears, or it wasn't something that was registering with them on a deep core level. They may have just taken these things at surface level or face value, even in up to and including kind of taking your presence in their life for granted. But now they're starting to see kind of the deeper inherent wisdom behind the words you were speaking, the love that was coming through, that was translated beyond the conversations that were had. This could have been things where you were giving almost like helpful advice. They could have been triggered or felt pressured to act, or like they were given an ultimatum. Even if you did at one point in time give them an ultimatum, it's almost like they're seeing that that was coming from a place of love rather than control. That might be something for a lot of people that has kind of opened up this possibility of, rather than sort of fighting against you in this connection, or looking at their feelings for you as almost like adversarial in nature, there's a sense of almost kind of like to surrender, or to start to lean into the place of even admitting they're very confused about the nature of what they feel and what comes next. How to kind of work through whatever their triggers are in order to be able to give more of themselves to you. Owning that, kind of sitting in that place of authenticity, it brings them more to a place of almost kind of peace and feeling at home within themselves, which it feels like is a big kind of factor in terms of valuing and prioritizing whatever they're strategizing or contemplating, as far as giving more to the situation in you, or moving back in your direction to try and repair what has been broken or lost between you. They also say, I feel your touch. So this can relate to, again, more of that activity in kind of like the astral realm, the energetic layers of reality, your higher selves colluding with one another at this point in time to try and orchestrate some sort of reconciliation. It feels like reconciliation with the parts within each of you that you've kind of been in conflict with. So this can speak about even like a balancing of the light and shadow aspects within self that you're each individually kind of doing or experiencing, or in the midst of kind of going through at this particular point in time, that is almost kind of the door that opens up kind of the passageway to a new layer of connection between the two of you. Rather than sort of just mending things on the outside, it's almost a process of they're walking with you in a parallel sense toward whatever it is that you're doing to kind of mend yourself emotionally, in conjunction with them and whatever's happened, or even kind of other things that you're sort of working through in terms of your emotional or romantic experiences from your past, that this person sees you as almost kind of like a beacon of light, a healing presence. They're drawn to your healing energy, or to almost like the instinctual motivation that they now have kind of embraced within themselves, almost, that they're not wanting to stay stuck in their patterns anymore, that there's almost this essence of sort of like, I want to be that better version of myself. There must be something more than what it is I've been feeling inside, or how I've been operating in the world up to this point in time. And it all leads back to something even kind of on a subtle level exchanged and experienced between the two of you, or again, kind of like words of wisdom sort of embedded within things spoken to them in the past, or encounters that you've had with one another, that there's almost the sense of recognizing like a hidden or elevated layer to that is helping to hoist them beyond kind of blocks and limits that have obstructed the full potential of this connection in the past, or have caused them to run away, rather than sort of move through that fear in a co-creative energy with you. They feel very aligned with you at this point in time. Even if there's distance between the two of you, there's almost a sense of like they close their eyes and they see you. They may kind of wake up in the morning and feel your energy all kind of with them and around them. Signs and synchronicities kind of drawing their attention to you throughout the day. Feeling this sense of almost anticipation of something more in your narrative between the two of you. Something kind of in terms of big change getting ready to happen, that it may feel like in the past they could have looked at that energy of big change and been sort of triggered and run in the opposite direction. This is almost like big change, and I'm wanting to explore that more. I'm wanting to participate with that more. I'm wanting to see where that leads to. We also have meeting me in the 5D. So another confirmation there of a lot of activity in those higher realms, in the astral realm, in the dream space. A lot of almost kind of, it feels like rehearsal of conversations that you may end up having with one another in a material sense that are taking place energetically speaking first and foremost. There may be a sense of almost increasingly this person's confidence is boosted each time they're meeting with you in dreams or in meditation, or even just energetically speaking at kind of like a frequency that is below the radar or beyond their sort of linear perceptions in a way that may happen throughout the day or kind of regularly, where you're sort of like touching base with one another, and a lot of their fears are allayed. They're kind of like put to rest. Any sort of like a lack mentality where they didn't feel good enough, they didn't feel that what they had to give in love was kind of worthy of what you were offering, or any difficulties you faced with one another in the past, and kind of a sense of, is it too little too late? Can we even repair the situation that may have kept them at a distance? It's almost like tapping into you energetically in some degree of receptivity or acceptance, or kind of healing or peace that they're kind of picking up from you in that capacity. It feels like consciously it draws them closer to you. It makes them feel more comfortable in kind of moving into a space of speaking their truth finally, or for the first time, or after a long time, or now at this kind of phase of your relationship, so that something new can blossom between the two of you. We also have spiritual healing will raise your vibration and give you strength. Yeah, so this person, it feels like, is in the process of kind of removing some obstacles and blocks within themselves that have kept them limited in terms of their capacity to trust in love or believe in love. So maybe somebody that has kind of had moved into a stage of their life where they thought love was all just a matter of like a chemical reaction, chemistry, and kind of like lust-based attractions between two people, but that love is a fairy tale, or it's fleeting, or it only ends up kind of hurting in the end, or leaving more damage than kind of benefit. That might have been sort of the heuristic that they were operating with when you came into contact with them. You encountered a broken person, or somebody who hadn't sufficiently kind of like healed wounds of the past. That might have been a wedge, or had been kind of the breaking point between the two of you up to this point in time in your connection. But it feels like quietly, internally, and in conjunction with sort of how you're meeting with one another and working with one another in tandem in those higher realms, they're actually starting to experience a willingness and a success with whatever is kind of needing to be healed or addressed or looked at. It may be a lot that's being shed energetically speaking, where it could be just kind of creating a sense of almost wide open space or a weightlessness within them, where they're able to kind of see themselves more clearly than they had before, because a lot of their distortions have kind of been cleared out of the way by whatever's happening in sort of those higher realms. It's almost kind of like a foggy mirror that they may have been looking into when it came to like self-reflection, or owning their role and kind of the way their life is played out emotionally in other ways. There's something happening in kind of those higher realms in the energetic layer where that foggy mirror is kind of cleaned off. They're able to see themselves more clearly due to kind of the exchange between the two of you, healing work, clearing work, helping to kind of allay some of their fears and build their confidence, energetically speaking, that they're able to kind of then have the courage to sort of look at themselves in a more practical manner and come up with solutions to work beyond obstacles, rather than just looking at obstacles and feeling that it's a lost cause, or that they're just a certain way and can't change, that they're motivated to try and bring something more to the table, bring a different version of them up from the shadows, up from a place of dormancy within, so that there's kind of active progression in the direction of something different between the two of you, or even just different results more broadly in terms of romance in their life in general. Something about this situation with you at this point in time has kind of motivated them to see there's something more available in love, and I'm capable of kind of bringing that to the table, of leading with that sort of energy, and then in return kind of experiencing a response of that in kind. We also have, I am aware, but don't quite understand the connection. So that's more that energy of soul searching. You're on their mind. Their feelings are on their mind. They may have been very avoidant looking at the nature of their feelings or admitting to themselves just how deeply they care about you, or for some that they even have feelings at all. But it feels that this is something where they've turned a corner in that capacity to where they don't have all the answers yet as far as what the next step between the two of you will be, what the next stage will be, what their action towards you is going to be, what all they're going to say, which is why it feels like there's a lot of rehearsals or like dress rehearsals that are happening in the dream space and in the astral kind of realm as sort of this prelude for, I don't have all the answers, but I'm very compelled in the direction of continuing to explore, satiating my curiosity and reaching out, creating that communication, speaking my truth, or pouring more into you in this situation that I have up to this point in time, so that we can kind of explore and see sort of what more is possible between the two of us, what needs to be done to repair the situation, and how deep can this go between us. We also have, I just couldn't find the right words to say. My mind has tripped on doubt. My thoughts are trapped in my throat. So holding back communication, it feels like, until they are able in some way to kind of provide you, it feels like, not just with an apology that's owed, or expressing more interest, being more active in your connection if you're still in contact with one another, but there's a sense of them wanting to, it feels like, for the next kind of move towards you, provide some sort of context of their behavior up to this point in time. So this can be like a deeper layer of emotional conversation that they're wanting to have, things they're wanting to explain to you about their backstory. If they've kind of pulled away or there's been a distance between the two of you, there's a sense of almost kind of like wanting to provide some sort of context to help alleviate any uncertainty or fears that you may have had, that like it was something about you. It's almost kind of like, it's not you, it's me, but I've done something about this, or I've come to understand this part of who I am. Let me express that. Let me show that. Let me bring that to the table, so that it provides context, but we're also sort of strengthening the nature of how we know one another, what we know of one another's kind of like wounds and history and experience, romantically speaking, so that you're both able to kind of like better navigate forward into something more between the two of you, so that there's progress rather than kind of just reconnecting again or deepening the relationship in order to come to the point where kind of brakes are put on, or someone pulls away from the other person. So it feels like communication might be on the horizon, but they're still sort of in the process of kind of working out what to say, or being shown what to say, creating a different kind of narrative within themselves to be able to bring something different into the narrative between the two of you. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got K, Q, N, C, A, Y, R, W, O, D, C, L, and M. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the Fluorite. So I'm going to start by pulling the message cards, and then I'll go through each one individually, read the message on the card, and tap into the deeper energy surrounding that. So what does your person want you to know right now from their higher self? Okay, and they say, I feel your anger. Please find it in your heart to forgive me. So if this is a situation where you're in no contact with somebody, they could know that they owe you an explanation. This could be somebody, it almost feels like someone that might have thought the grass was greener on the other side, either put you in a third-party situation, or maybe refused or rejected the cup of love you had to offer because they weren't ready to settle down, thought that they might be able to find something better, judged you in some sort of way, perhaps, maybe based on the circumstances of how you met one another, things about you that might have reminded them or been reminiscent of people that they'd been in connections with romantically before, where you almost might have been held to an unfair standard, forced to kind of like suffer for the mistakes of people that they dealt with romantically in their past, or living in the shadow maybe even of somebody that from their past that they could have been waiting and anticipating that person's return, someone they could have really put on a pedestal in a certain manner, that it's almost kind of like the present real-time reality of what you had to offer that could have been something that was almost like an opportunity for redemption or another chance at love for them, outside of whatever might have hurt them in their past, or a person that, you know, they could have been sort of pining for and sort of chasing from afar, that it almost feels to be something that they didn't recognize, they took for granted. They spoiled the gift of the potential of this connection and kind of what was offered to them when you came into their life, when you came into their reality. They've reached some period of clarity, or some sort of an understanding. Maybe the tables have turned. Someone gave them a taste of their own medicine. Someone left them out in the cold, or pulled the rug out from under them in a certain manner, made them feel like an option or not good enough, to where it's almost they've now walked a mile in your shoes in a sense. They're feeling how you have felt. They're perceiving that in a certain manner, and there's a sense of like, I would like to come back in and try to make up for lost time, or to provide some sort of apology for what I've done in the past. For some, it might have even just been where you were just ghosted out of the blue, or blocked with no kind of explanation. And whatever the motivations, it's going to be different for everyone. It feels like this person's now kind of reached a place of maybe they're considering unblocking you, or they have unblocked you, or it's a sense of like, I want to create communication. I've changed, I've evolved, I've matured. I've seen that whatever I sort of gravitated toward or prioritized in my life does not or did not bring me the level of fulfillment that I experienced with you. So almost like, is it too little too late? But kind of a bit of sort of fear of how that all might play out as well, if they sort of approach you, because there's an understanding of they're going to have to be very sort of in depth with what they say, with what they provide. They can't just gloss over it, that there's almost like explanation or context that needs to be provided in order to realistically have the ability to sort of create a fresh start energy. And so they may be a bit intimidated by that, but also very drawn to that understanding that this in some way is kind of like karmically necessary for them. It's in alignment with their highest good. It's what their heart's calling them to do, just sort of whatever that looks like. We We also have forgive me. I had to choose myself. I was not able to give you what you wanted. So this can tie into, again, that element of someone who knows an apology is owed. They owe you an explanation. There's a desire to resume contact or to, provide some sort of context for their behavior in the past. But this feels especially relevant for those where it was just like they pulled the plug on the connection very abruptly. They pulled their energy back kind of without warning. They just went cold or changed or became very distant in a way. That feels most specifically to tie into, for a lot of people, some sort of woundedness. It could also been kind of the reemergence of an ex from their past, someone they'd been really kind of holding out space for, who might have sort of sensed energetically they were moving forward in their life. They had started to develop feelings for someone else, like you in this situation, and that could have clued this other person in to sort of like reach out or breadcrumb this individual, breadcrumb the person that you're watching the reading about, or in some way kind of pique their interest or curiosity to where you might have been put on the back burner in the interest of, I want to explore this other situation or this other person who is now reemerged. And it feels like that choice or that option has fizzled out. It's faded. That person's disappeared again, or it's just the same old story. Nothing's changed. Or maybe even your person is seeing they have changed. And what was once kind of like their heart's desire, what they felt most compatible or aligned with, is now something that they no longer resonate with, because they have changed as a person, or the other person has changed or has remained stagnant. And it feels like it's created this domino effect, whatever those details and specifics are, that it feels like it's taken place behind the scenes, behind closed doors. You don't have any kind of like proof or indicators or knowledge of sort of what any of this looks like, but it's a sense of now the attention is drawn back towards you and how this person sort of squandered or sabotaged an opportunity with you in the past, that there's an understanding of, I need to make this right. I want to make this right. And we also have, when I'm with you, I am home again. I will always love you. So third confirmation there of maybe somebody reaching out from a distance, wanting to come home, wanting to come out from the cold, open those lines of communication to see, will you take them back? Is it too little too late? Can this be healed? Can the past be repaired in a certain manner? A sense of kind of like, if they had even just sort of ghosted and there wasn't a third party involved, it might have even just been kind of a feeling of, I'm not ready to settle down, or I'm uncertain if you're kind of the person that I've been looking for, or maybe I can find something better out there. It's almost kind of like they've wandered and searched to no avail. Even a choice to kind of just remain single and on their own, it's become increasingly more lonely. And that idea of like pairing up with another person, or returning to the place where they have felt up to this point most kind of like sheltered and accepted emotionally, it feels like their attention goes towards you. Their sights are set towards you. It's an essence of, I know I'm going to have to explain myself. I can't just walk back in like nothing has happened, but I don't yet know how to kind of go about that in a sense. So I'm sort of like watching from afar, fearing the wrath that I may encounter knocking on your door again after everything that has happened. And yet I can't break away from the sense of sort of like having made a mistake, having moved in the improper direction, and wanting to circumnavigate back to this place where you are able to start again, or kind of progress forward, or pick up from where you left off. We also have it as time to bloom. Yeah, so there's an essence here of wanting to tap into seeds of potential between the two of you. Are these still viable? Do you still have feelings? If this was a situation where they weren't ready for what you had to offer, or were kind of like holding you accountable for some wounds left within their heart, emotionally speaking, by partners from their past, there's a sense of almost kind of releasing the hold that some of these things have had, maybe even needing to go through the experience of taking looking back an ex only to see nothing has changed, or it's not a healthy situation, or that's not the person for them. And now there's this essence of sort of like learning the hard way for a lot of people, because for some this almost feels to be an energy of, if this person showed back up because of what has happened or what they've put you through, you would not give them another chance. They've exhausted their chances with you. It's kind of like too little too late. And yet there's a sense of almost kind of maybe even a bit of intimidation on their part, like a higher self level, knowing that likely if they are able to follow through with this kind of draw towards you, it will simply provide some kind of vindication or closure to you that you may have already gone about the process of creating for yourself. You may have cut cords with this person in this situation. You picked up the pieces as best as you could. You've reconstructed your life in some manner. You may be seeing somebody else. You're open to the possibilities of love elsewhere. You're thriving on your own. This individual can either see that from afar, or is picking that up energetically speaking, maybe in the aftermath of whatever's happened in their life or in their circumstances that has their attention focused back on you. They see you in a new light, and it's feeling very uncomfortable, recognizing what they had now that it's gone, and even ways in which you've exceeded sort of the maximum capacity of wonder that you embodied when they were last dealing with you. It's almost like you're more beautiful or more handsome than you were before. You're more radiant. You're more in your personal power. You feel even more like a sense of home. There's a homesickness now for you and for your connection that wasn't there before. And yet there's this curiosity about, could there be something between the two of us? Did we need to go down this road where our paths diverged, lessons were learned, and perhaps is this the right time for our story to unfold? We also have my spirit is awake. So this person may have gone through a spiritual awakening, gone through a dark night of the soul. They've had to sort of deal with the repercussions of their choices up to this point in their life. And it feels to be something that it's part of like a greater spiritual lesson, even because, again, for a lot of people, if they reach out, you're not going to take them back. You've already closed this out. You've grown, you've evolved, you have moved beyond this. And so it feels to be something where it's almost like the crystallization of that lesson, the gift that the universe provides of love, which is a rare occurrence, is something that should not be taken for granted when it shows up, no matter what that package that it arrives in is like. And it feels to be that is something that perhaps follow through for those where it's a situation where you wouldn't take this person back, and kind of the reverberation of that, them being rejected, or kind of like you not even responding, silence being a response in and of itself, or even something where there's conversation that happens, but maybe you both discover that you've kind of grown beyond one another. This situation, even if you'd been holding space for them, kind of like the reality of them showing back up, who you are now, who they are now, is not compatible. And it gives almost kind of like rest or peace to the memory or the experience or the versions of you that you both were when you were last in conjunction with one another, to where it almost feels to be something that's kind of like the situation could be on the brink of kind of like closing out a lesson with one another, closing out your soul contract with one another. Even with those where, this is a situation that the person just thinks about it and doesn't take any action, it feels like even kind of on the higher self or an energetic level, there's some sort of like closure that is occurring or that has occurred in this situation that they're very much awake to. They're very much sort of like seeing that this was an opportunity with you that was squandered, that was not appreciated, that was missed, that was taken for granted. There is a desire to sort of, almost like, if I knew then what I know now, I would have made different choices, but that might just be their lesson, is to have to sit with that knowledge. And we also have a hide my love from you. Yes, this could be somebody who rejected your love in the past, denied their feelings for you in the past. Maybe you felt very led on. They brought you to a certain point, emotionally speaking, and then just kind of ghosted you or made a very abrupt sort of turn in their approach to you emotionally. They've been holding feelings inside for quite some time, or even if they've spoken of feelings or alluded to feelings for you, there's a lot more depth and mystery to that than you have been made aware of. The depth and nature and intensity of their feelings may scare them, and that could again be something that has been the motivation for sabotaging, running from the situation. I'm scared to get hurt again. I'm scared of losing myself in this connection. Somebody who would almost kind of rather have kicked the legs out from the tripod before the whole thing sort of fell over, just anticipating that that would be the sense. Not trusting in sort of the face value of the connection in the past, what you brought to the table. Not trusting in kind of like the energies that you presented or who you were as a person. It feels like their own sort of doubts and fears clouded their vision. It closed their heart off to the wonder and the beauty of this situation that is now something that they kind of like, they're seeing this shadowy aspect of them with a place of regret. They're kind of understanding how they've really sort of bamboozled themselves in this situation by whatever their conduct was towards you, or whatever ways they've almost made you question if you're good enough. They've left you waiting, or left you out in the cold, or you know, kind of dropped the momentum of what the two of you had going with one another in the interest of somebody who maybe had only ever left heartbreak in their wake. So there could have even been like a trauma bond or some codependency with somebody from their past that had kind of like, even if that person didn't resurface, it's almost like their bond to that situation was a wedge, or has been, or is a wedge between the two of you to some extent still, that sort of limits how openly and freely they're able to kind of give and receive love with you. And so it's a sense of almost sort of they're hiding themselves away from the abundance of what's possible in the situation, or have in the past, due to some kind of affinity or loyalty to a person which hurt them, or a state of woundedness, kind of the wounds taking on a life of their own, creating a jadedness as far as love is concerned, that unfortunately it feels like has kind of sabotaged the opportunity for something very beautiful in the past. For some, if this person, you know, emerges and kind of brings forth this truth or this apology, it feels like there's still hope to kind of crack into some new potential between the two of you, experience something deeper than was the case in the past. But there's a lot that it feels like they need to sort of own up to, but they're very much awake to that in a way, knowing that it's got to be more complex than just a hi, how's it going message, or text or something. That there's going to need to be some sort of level of clarity and disclosure that has not been provided up to this point in time in order to move forward. We also have, you will always be what I hold in my heart, even though you feel so far away. So that's another energy of like no contact, somebody who might have ghosted, somebody who has kept their feelings secret for you. Maybe it has been a substantial period of time since you last saw one another. This is not a situation where it's out of sight, out of mind. They still have deep and complex feelings for you that, for various reasons, it feels like have been brought to the surface. They've been reminded of this in a certain way. And it's a sense of like, I should have spoken my truth when I had the chance. I wonder what would have happened if I'd handled the situation differently. I ran from you, but I see I was only running from myself. You know, almost kind of that energy of sort of walking a mile in your shoes. They may be able to understand what you were trying to convey to them emotionally in the past when you tried to give your love, and they either ran from it, rejected it, took it for granted, refused it altogether. It's almost like they've moved into those same deep waters emotionally, either in time spent alone and kind of the loneliness that has incurred from that decision, or any kind of entanglements or dealings that they've had with like past people, where maybe they were the one who was in really deep and the other person was unsure and kind of left them high and dry, left them sort of stuck in love all alone, and their attention is now kind of come back towards you. Now they see what they've put you through, and it's moved them into a space of like, I know on some level karmically speaking, at a soul level, I need to make this situation right. It's hanging over my head. It's a weightedness. I can't fully move on from what I have done and what has occurred, and yet it's a sense of still remaining very secretive about it at this particular point in time, fearing what you will say, and it almost feels like an equal measure, if not more, fearing silence as a response, that you'll just ignore them altogether. And we also have, I know you hurt. It's not rejection. I do adore you, but I can't be there like you want yet. So more of that energy of them understanding that they're going to have to bring something complex, something honest, something deeper to the table, emotionally speaking, in terms of the subject matters they're willing to talk about, the level of clarity and disclosure that they give, than has been the case in the past. It feels like this person maybe has had a lot of chances with you. It could have been like an on again, off again situation, or building your hopes up to the point where they've let you down, or that you felt very led on, very kind of strung along by whatever kind of breadcrumbing or whatever was happening between the two of you, that there's a sense of almost kind of like to resume a place in your life or ask for a seat at your table once again. It's going to require more than just empty promises. It's going to require some sort of willingness to sit in that element of discomfort where it may take time to earn trust back, if you're even willing to extend it to them. Again, there's a sense of them recognizing that they may just need to move through the rest of this life, understanding that they've squandered the ability for deep love, and that's just their lot in life. That's just one of the burdens they must carry. There's a desire to change the situation, a recognition that they can't go back and change the past, but at this point in time, not yet feeling confident enough in kind of the potential for success in terms of whatever they might bring forward to actually take action. So it's somebody that it feels like is sort of thinking about this, maybe meditating, praying on what to say a lot, sort of looking at the situation from hindsight, perhaps even watching from the shadows, seeing you kind of like secret admirer sort of energy. Looking at you with a lot of respect, or seeing you in a light that wasn't necessarily apparent before, but not really feeling good enough to sort of approach you and come out into the light with the truth of what they want to say. And we also have, my darling, please have just a little more patience. So it feels that for some, there is going to be a motivation to see this through to the place of bringing forth words, bringing forth that apology, some kind of line of communication that may be opened. It almost feels that it's the kind of energy that feels that this is someone who would send a multi-paragraph email to you, for example, with the thought of, I better get this all out because there's a very likely chance this person won't respond. So it's kind of like saying as much as they can, not expecting to get any sort of reply. So it's working up the nerve, working up the courage to speak that sort of truth, whatever it is that they might even have to sort of deal with or heal from. A recognition that kind of like wounding and ways in which they have used that or allowed that to kind of limit the experiences with you and other people, that it's landed them in a situation where they now themselves are at a loss, that there's a need to sort of heal that, repair that, cauterize those wounds within them before they are able to bring something to you that creates change in a positive way. That it's not more of kind of like, here are these jagged edges within me, and expecting you to kind of like embrace those shards and kind of just endure whatever pain and suffering accompanies kind of this approach to romance, or this kind of like armor that this person has on as far as emotions are concerned. They are recognizing that they need to kind of shield you from further sort of disappointment by working to kind of improve something within themselves, where they're able to be more honest. They're able to kind of face the fire, whatever sort of happens, whether you reject them, whether you give them a taste of their own medicine, whether you give them a tongue lashing, or you say nothing at all. or you agree to kind of work things through. There's the essence of they have to equate all those possible situations and scenarios before moving forward. It feels like there's also kind of a substantial chunk of people where this is somebody who will not work up that courage. They will continue to just sort of sit there and lament, and that might be the crystallization of that lesson. You're the one that got away, and they're now kind of just sitting in this energy of, this is the bed that they've made for themselves, or that they've chosen, or that they return to. That's the reality of kind of the world that they're living in now. And they just get to kind of watch or experience or reminisce or sort of fantasize in their mind how life might have turned out for them if they had kind of made a different choice, or had not made you feel like a choice and an option, but had really kind of prioritized and nurtured the connection with you. So let's get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got N, W, Y, P, O, I, M, E, F, W, M, Q, U, A, and C. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the Golden Healer Quartz. So I'm going to start by pulling the cards, and then I'll go through each one individually, read the message on the card, and then tap into the deeper energy surrounding that. So what does your person want you to know right now from their higher self? Okay, and we have, darling, we must. Separation is necessary. It is part of our spiritual journey. So if this is someone you've been in no contact with, it feels that they have reached a milestone or have crossed some sort of threshold in terms of lessons that may have been necessary for them to experience in areas of their life other than love and romance, that in some way are part of like a bigger choreography or a plan that their soul had sort of set in motion, the blueprint for this lifetime. That in a certain way, it almost feels to be somebody that you've had a glimpse of one another. You've had a taste of what love and romance is like or could be like between the two of you. And then your paths have almost had to sort of drift apart from one another, or almost, kind of chaos that may have ensued within the connection that led to like a breaking point between the two of you, that has kind of facilitated or necessitated time to themselves, or at least just sort of removed from the situation with you in order to be able to kind of close out some other cycles for themselves, go through some experiences that they needed to work on that kind of helped them to be a better human being, and therefore able to kind of like show up in a loving connection with another human being in a more sort of healthy and productive manner, as opposed to kind of like bringing forth, it feels like, attention being drawn in many different directions, energetically speaking. That might have been the case with this person in the past, or almost at the point in their life that they were at in terms of like linear time. They may have been at this threshold of sort of sensing or intuiting instinctually, as sort of like, okay, there's going to be some experiences that take place. Maybe things as far as like career and finance, health matters, other interpersonal relationships, where they were needing to kind of like work through those cycles or see those cycles to a point of completion and an end, and almost in the sense of almost like a subtle anticipation. What am I needing to work on first? Everything needs to be kind of upgraded in my life in a certain manner. And so it's almost kind of like the situation between the two of you in the past might have been sort of an incentive or a cue or an indicator that on the other side of their willingness to go through a process of closing out certain cycles, deeper love, higher love, healthy and reciprocal love is available for them, but it's something that they have to almost kind of work towards within themselves, earn in a sense, through their willingness to kind of tend to their other sort of duties and obligations on a soul level. It's the sense of needing to kind of go through a process of purging or preparation in order to render themselves into a vibrational version of who they are that matches the frequency of whatever it was and is kind of you're moving toward in terms of your own healing and abundance journey. So separation being necessary for each of you to go through some sort of lessons or experiences, that there's kind of like there's an appreciation for this time away on their part. They wouldn't necessarily have been able to kind of go through what they went through, put as much focus on it, or be almost sort of swept away by these things in quite the same manner as they would have had things worked out between the two of you and their life been very much a different thing than what it is right now. Had you just sort of coupled up and continued on with one another and started to build in another direction, it's almost like they wouldn't have experienced crucial lessons through a process of things almost falling apart or breaking down, but they've crossed the other side of that process enough to be able to sort of see the necessity or the benefit in a certain way in how things have kind of taken a detour for themselves in their life, and also how there's been a detour from where the two of you were once kind of close and in sync with one another, and how that relationship has sort of unraveled or changed in a certain capacity. We also have trust in me. It's not like we hoped, but trust in our connection. And in the end, all is possible. So again, kind of a bigger perspective that they're taking right now in terms of experiences in their life, seeing how certain things were unavoidable or needed to play out, or kind of were blessings in disguises. This might be sort of a theme overall for other areas of their life at this point in time. And they are at a place where they're able to sort of hold space for the proximity of this situation with you, wherever things are at currently, whatever's happened in the past. They've reflected enough or have grown or evolved in other areas of their life to be able to sort of equate, even if they don't have all the answers, to be able to piece out what those lessons are, what to do from this point forward. There's a sense of understanding that as things have fallen apart or have become difficult, or there's like obstacles and pressure in this circumstance, just as these things ultimately in other compartments of this individual's life have been something that they have been able to sort of harness to their advantage, or that they've ended up kind of in certain ways better off than they started as a result of kind of things falling apart and breaking down. There's a sense of almost hope that this situation with you can become stronger precisely because of how it's been fractured, or things falling apart have led the two of you in opposite directions, to kind of like opposite shores from one another, to be able to work through some things that you needed time and space and like physical distance to be able to sort of go through individually. But now they're at a place of sort of seeing that maybe they've been able to rebuild from sort of the point of no return, and on multiple occasions, or in a very profound area of their life, in something other than love and romance, that has kind of renewed or instilled hope in this situation potentially still being salvageable, or this version of them that has kind of emerged on the other side of challenges is in fact better equipped to kind of meet your emotional needs than who they were previously when you were last dealing with them. So there's a bit of gratitude here for sort of how circumstances have played out, and also what might be possible now at this point in time through and as a result of sort of what the time apart has afforded each of you. They also say we learn from our karma, so we will be strong. Yeah, so there's a confirmation of some things which have come to an abrupt end for your person, karma that they've needed to sort of settle and balance some degree of kind of like vindication, maybe for, ways in which they even sort of took your emotions for granted, took people in their life for granted, things in their life, the life they were living, ways in which they weren't making the most of their gifts or harnessing their full potential, creating and living a life in accordance to others' expectations of them, rather than sort of following the call of their heart or soul, maybe in a more authentic direction. It feels like if this is someone you haven't talked to in a while, and they reach out or they make their presence known, they and their life in general may be very different from what you remember. They may look different even. They may have undergone some kind of physical transformation. They may do something completely different for work, live in a different place, have a different friend circle, relationship with family may have altered substantially. There could have been spiritual shifts, spiritual awakening energy. This person could have found religion, could have found spirituality, found something that has helped them to kind of piece together their life out of some element of wreckage that either was self-imposed. They experienced a shift and change, and started to proactively kind of dismantle or reimagine things in their life that weren't in accordance with that. There also feels to be something where there may have been like divine intervention, a series of tower moments that left them no choice but to have to just sort of like sit and surrender to the journey, go within, find other sort of outlets and avenues for, fulfillment of themselves beyond kind of like an ego-based need, almost like spiritual sustenance. And it feels that this is given way to, again, like a very elevated or evolved perspective where this person is able to hold space of gratitude for even the most sort of like trying of circumstances, challenges that would have embittered other people and maybe for a period of time embittered them. It's given way to a sense of sort of like even the hopefulness they hold inside for the future wouldn't have been possible if they hadn't been brought to their knees in a certain way and were forced to kind of just trust in the process of sort of the light at the end of the tunnel revealing itself in the time and manner that it's meant to. So they are on some kind of ascension path, it feels like, or have worked through enough or have been put through enough that they have reprioritized sort of what they value, what matters to them, what they feed their energy into, and kind of even what they allow in their life at this point in time. We also have yearning for the day to be together again. So reconciliation is on their mind, reaching out across the distance, geographic, time and space. This is somebody who it feels like may have been a very emotionally turbulent person, a lot of volatility, a lot of repressed kind of anger and rage, maybe about not having a proper outlet or a healthy example of how to sort of process their own emotions, a lot of unhealed wounds, things from their childhood and upbringing that could have just really been detrimental in terms of how they were showing up as a partner in romance, as a friend, as a family member, all of these things needing to kind, even as an employee, all of these things needing, or a boss or a manager even, all of these things needing to kind of be restructured in a way to where it feels like maybe that volatility could have created some tower moments within, either like an implosion or an explosion, emotionally speaking, that could have led to a series of circumstances where then they are kind of left having to sit and self-reflect in a way. So legal troubles could have been an aspect for some people, troubles at work, troubles with interpersonal relationships. Something came crashing down or created enough tension and pressure where they've needed to figure out a new way of living. They've found or cultivated or created or been able to access some kind of degree of personal peace within, some kind of clarity, some sort of system or strategy that they now use, some tool that they have accessible to them that has helped them to gain perspective on their life, create stability within their life, heal, or even it could even be like a creative outlet for some of kind of like deep emotions that they have within that they've not been able to process in the past, to where now they're in a place of peace and there's a desire to kind of extend peace towards you, bring forth a peace offering, open themselves up to the idea of, if we are able to regenerate the connection between the two of us, I've created more of a space of inner tranquility, so I'm able to kind of be that space. I'm able to hold that and anchor in that energy of tranquility for you to learn to sort of trust in me, trust in this version of me, to learn to open up your heart again to this situation and to love. We also have time to walk away. So this is a sense of, again, like closing out some karmic patterns, some cycles, some loops in their life they've been working toward or have been kind of like forced to do that. They may have moved, they may have relocated. They are, again, like an evolved or a different version of the person you were dealing with before. They may be unrecognizable in a lot of ways, or the life that they're living is unrecognizable from what was the case before. They've taken their power back from certain circumstances, and it feels like, most specifically, almost kind of an energy of, it feels like walking through life as if there were no repercussions to how they treated other people, to what they were kind of feeding their time and attention into, habits, lifestyle choices that they maybe obviously or outwardly would know were not healthy for them. This can be things as far as like addiction, even kind of addicted to rage or to anger, or a workaholic for some people. A sense of kind of just pouring all their efforts into sort of improper things, or things which sort of only led to more frustration, weren't really feeding or fulfilling them on a deep soul level, which could have led to a lot of emotional turbulence. They've turned a corner in that capacity. They've been forced to, or have chosen to, kind of like find another way to emotionally self-regulate, and they're now at a place of kind of feeling stronger, even within a way of kind of owning their feelings that may not have been the case in the past. This is the type of person that, if they move back towards you, if they reach out, if they follow through on this urge to reconnect, it feels like they would be very open with you about their journey. It may be a very long conversation, or a get together, or a meetup between the two of you, where there's a lot to tell. A lot has taken place since the two of you were last in connection with one another. No matter how long that has been, it feels to be something that, even within themselves, or a series of things which have unfolded in their life, has presented or has unearthed a different version of them than you were dealing with in the past. Relatively speaking, that will kind of have taken shape and form in different ways. It feels like for most people that are resonating with this, it's going to be more of a longer term separation, like at least 6 months you haven't been in contact with this individual, maybe years or a substantial chunk of time that has gone by, to where they really have evolved and changed. You've evolved and changed. They've evolved and changed. You're like two strangers, unrecognizable to one another in various ways, compared to how and who you were, how you were living and who you were when you were last sort of in contact with one another. There's now this urge to sort of return, to resume a place in your life, to step forth and introduce you to this version of them that has been kind of carved out and cultivated as a result of difficulties. We also have I love you. So this is the essence of not out of sight, not out of mind. It feels like you've been a companion for this person, energetically speaking, through some heaviness, through some turmoil, some turbulence. You may have been kind of a light in the darkness for them, a motivation for them. They may be very consciously aware of the dynamic between the two of you. They may consider you a twin flame or a soulmate, a counterpart, somebody that they are magnetized toward, or that motivates them beyond kind of periods of change and transformation, even just energetically speaking. It feels that this is someone who's evolved into a place where they're very much aware of energy. They may be aware, again, of like a soul connection between the two of you. They're aware that kind of they might not have been ready for the nature and intensity of their feelings before, or the energies between the two of you, or this connection as a whole that could have caused them to sort of lean back into wounding, patterns of self-sabotage, and sort of move away from the situation. But it's almost like they've changed and evolved and grown into a version of themselves that now has the capacity to more deeply love themselves, and therefore offer something more consistent, stable, substantial, meaningful to you in terms of love than they were able to give before. And we also have, well, this heartache end. This tears me apart. So more of that energy of like turbulence, turmoil, tower moments coming out of the dark night of the soul. Multiple areas of their life that it feels like have needed to go through some sort of redesign or makeover, but they are far enough along in that process or path, or they've gained enough clarity and insight to understand that it all leads back to love. It's led them home to a more authentic version of themselves. And now there's the sense of kind of like, I want to come out from hiding. I want to move back in your direction and sort of show you what I have done with this time apart, how this separation has been a gift between the two of us, how I have been improved by this situation, or even by challenges in my life, what was sent to destroy me, or what I have cultivated by my own hand that was kind of the means of my own undoing. It has not gotten the better of me. I have in fact risen as sort of the best version of me by virtue of those kind of things which tore down the ego, or tore down the version of me that I was moving through the world as before. So there's an essence of wanting to make amends, wanting to kind of bring forth empowered communication, clarity, heart-to-heart discussions, to be able to provide you with some sort of context that maybe helps you come to a place of sort of appreciating what has happened. They've grown and changed and evolved in a very positive way. They've moved toward love within themselves, and it feels like we'll not just sort of hold on to this quietly, but they for most people, they have this sort of intention of bringing that forth to you in a certain way. Maybe it's kind of just a check-in. If it's been a lot of time and you both kind of have other lives established, then it may just be a sense of sort of like, I see what I did was wrong, or I'm just checking in, to kind of tell you what all has gone on in my life, to give you the appreciation and kind of the credit that was due to you before that they had failed to do in the past. For others, it's the energy of sort of like wanting to come forth and build a bridge between the spaces that have now developed between the two of you, to end the kind of unknowing about, I wonder what could have happened, what might have unfolded if our story had turned out a different way. This is a person who's like at a point in their journey where there's something that they have to offer. There's a curiosity about, can we repair this situation? Can we move out of a place of our last or lingering memory or experience with one another being largely negative, or kind of a lot of sort of wounding and damage involved in that? Can we move instead in the direction of, we're repairing, we're healing, I'm bringing you forth this healed version of me, and if you choose to participate with that, I'm on board with kind of moving beyond what we've experienced in the past. And they also say, I want to be with you. It's always been you. So this may be kind of the energy of someone who's taken the long way home. They could have had a recognition, a spark, some kind of activation, a spiritual awakening, kundalini awakening, or a heart chakra activation. you know, kind of this recognition, this spark of like a soul connection between the two of you when you were last sort of dealing with one another, or the relationship was more fresh. They could have ridden this wave of momentum, the intensity building, the connectedness building, the energies building, telepathy, you know, a lot happening in the dream space, in the astral realm, signs and synchronicities, a lot of deja vu, and kind of just really feeding into that, really flowing with that current. Feels like at a certain point, wounding took hold and they vacated, they left you hanging. They sort of pulled back or didn't follow through, or created turbulence or dissonance within the situation. That it feels like was sort of maybe even the first domino, whatever has falling down in kind of a progressive series of things that needed to be sort of revamped within their own life, within different kind of quadrants or sectors in their life, that they now have reached a place of almost sort of no longer running from themselves, able to love themselves fundamentally and fully enough that they're able to kind of hold space for, honor, recognize, and very kind of consciously exist in the reality that there is love in their heart for you. There have always been feelings for you. There's always been a desire to explore something more. There's always been a sense of the two of you could be really good together, or would have been really good together, or should have been really good together if things had played out differently. So it feels like for most, this is not someone that's just going to sit on the fence with this idea of like, I wonder what could have happened. It feels like they are in a place in their life where they're very empowered. And so if they have the ways and means to kind of move towards you, if they're in another relationship, it feels like they will not, just because of kind of where they've developed to spiritually, that they may see it as kind of like unfair to put you in a third party situation. So they would just rather sort of keep that information to themselves, either until they become single and can move towards you, or depending on the nature of the circumstances, maybe something they just keep in their secret heart. You know, that they have, even though they might not have sort of acted in a way to build and nurture it, that they have known love. They have experienced deep and profound soul transforming love in this lifetime, and that it is a gift in and of itself, no matter how the situation is played out. For others, this is a sense of, if they're open, if they're available, if they're single, they're not just going to hold on to sort of this secret longing. They will make a move towards you to see, is it too little too late? Is this version of me what is kind of most compatible with who you've grown and evolved into? And we also have, I heard our song, Memories of You Poured Over Me. So you might even be getting a lot of kind of messages, or a feeling of resonance with this person's energy when you hear certain songs. Songs may be coming through in the dream space. This person could have a playlist of songs that reminds them of you, songs that you've sent them in the past that they're now listening to. They're nostalgic. It's a sense of an unfinished symphony. They needed to kind of perfect or improve or tune things within themselves and within their own life to be able to provide you almost kind of a level or a frequency or an emanation or a version of themselves that is able to kind of harness and hold and carry and present and exist within a space of like a higher love potential with another person. So they've been working on themselves. They've come into a place of harmony within, and it feels like for a lot of people, they're kind of gearing up to bring forth new energy, fresh energy, in a hopes of sort of picking up where you've left off and kind of reharmonizing the situation, finishing what you started with one another, and moving actively in the direction of kind of restoration and love. So let's get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got V, D, U, J, Y, R, C, W, B, F, L, E, A, X, C, S, O, and N. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.